Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to lesson 2. In this lesson, we will be discussing literary devices. We'll be explaining what they are, and we'll be giving their importance. We'll be talking about the importance of literary devices in a piece of work, and we'll be looking at examples of literary devices and how to apply them, and we'll be having exercises on how to apply them in our own work. Now, what are literary devices? Literary devices are, common. They're common structures and elements that writers use in their work. Okay, these structures are what help the writer convey their ideas or message to their audience. Okay, and for the reader, literary devices show the reader how to read the piece of work that they are, reading at the moment. The importance of literary devices are listed below. Literary devices beautify a piece of work. They give the work deeper meaning. They allow the reader to look deeper beyond, the literal meaning of the words on the page. They allow the reader to appreciate the piece of work because, like we said before, it beautifies the piece of work. It adds color to it. So in turn will now allow the reader to appreciate the piece of work, okay, and be able to believe that it is worth something. And then literary devices also allow the reader to tests the comprehension of the reader. It tests how much the reader understands the piece that they are reading. Now, literary devices are divided into two. Some people do not, divide it into two. They just use the term literary device to mean any of what we'll be showing, and that will be going into in the next slides. But I believe it's better to, just divide them into these two components, which are literary elements or components, and literary techniques. Okay, but most times you see people, you see some writers or whatever use the term literary device to mean all of these things. Okay, so literary elements are intrinsic components that a writer uses to develop their work. Without these elements, a writer may be unable to create a professional piece of work. Okay, they are intrinsic. They must be in that piece of work, okay, for it to be considered a professional piece of work. And examples are plot. This is for fiction writers. Your work must have a plot, and a plot is basically what your story is about. What is going to be happening throughout your story is your plot. You'll agree with me that if a novel does not have a plot, then it cannot be considered a novel. Okay, it must also have settings. It must have a setting. It must be set somewhere or in many places. Okay, it can't just happen in a void. Okay, it must have a setting, and it must have character. It must have a character or characters. Okay, your novel must have someone or some people that the story centers around. Okay, so without this, your novel cannot be termed as a novel. And for non-fiction books or pieces, your work must have an introduction. This is where you introduce or present the idea that you want, or the message that you want to pass across to your reader. And the body is the main, the main meat, where the main information, where the information you want your reader to get, that is the body. That is where that will be presented, and then you must have a conclusion, what you want your reader to, the information you want your reader to have learned from reading your book. So we will not be going too deep into this because it's beyond the scope of this course. This course is about how to write well how to apply good techniques in your writing. So we won't be talking about all this, but I feel that it is necessary for us to to show this, let you see that these are what literary elements are, just to have an idea. Now the second division is literary techniques. Now literary techniques, on the contrary, are tools that a writer employs to get that work done. So after you have your introduction or your body or your characters and everything, literary techniques are now the tools of the trade that will help you get your work done and help you beautify your work. Okay, they are the ones, these literary techniques are the tools that will show your reader, the tools that you will employ and that will show your reader, will guide your reader on how to read your work. And literary techniques usually come in form of words or phrases. Okay, and it will grant your readers the understanding of your work, to help them understand your work better, and it will help them appreciate the work of the writer. Now, examples of literary techniques are, the first example I'm going to give, there are a lot. Okay, I know that we may have come across this in school, high school, or something, or if you're took English language classes or something. But I'm just going to give the five, give five very common ones, and the other ones can be done. You can read about that later. I would put a PDF in the course area where I'll list out some other ones. Okay, so the very common ones are the ones that I'm going to be listing in this lesson. And the first one is a metaphor. Now, a metaphor is one of the most common it's one of the most common literary techniques out there, and it is also known as direct comparison. A metaphor is a statement in which two unrelated objects are compared to each other. Okay, two unrelated objects are compared to each other. Now, as you can see, the example on the screen is "A love is poison." Now, when a writer uses a metaphor, they are able to pack as many descriptions and images as they want in one very short sentence. You see how this ties to one of the importance of literary devices, where I said that it gives your work a deeper meaning that goes beyond the literal meaning of whatever it is that you've written. So this is one of such instances where what you write gives, projects a deeper meaning than the literal one. Okay, so in the example above, the reader is given an image of someone, whose, form of affection has a wounding effect on those that she claims to love, because it says that our love is poison. It's poison, and what does poison do? It makes the reader think about, how wounding her love must be, because poison is not something good. It's not something that does anything good to the body. Poison, destroys organs. It does damage to the body. So definitely, the reader will believe that this person's form of expression of love is something that is damaging, is something that has disastrous consequences. Okay, so instead of the writer describing in multiple sentences, using multiple sentences, how this person's love is damaging or disastrous or whatever, just packs the writer decides then to pack all that meaning into this simple forward sentence, which is that her love is poison. And believe me, your reader will get it, because when you think about poison, the first thing you think about is death, or at least something not good. So definitely the reader will understand that that person's love is something that is damaging. Maybe she's someone that is controlling, maybe she's someone that is abusive or something like that. So that simple sentence allows your reader to see so many possibilities and see so many images, in their mind. Okay, so you do not need to read, you do not need to use too many sentences to pass across the message that you want to. And we'll now move on to the second literary technique, the second common one, which is simile. Okay, and unlike a metaphor, a simile is also known as an indirect comparison. And it is like a metaphor as well, because its two unrelated objects are compared to each other. But the difference between simile and metaphor is that that a metaphor does not, a simile uses the word like or as to drive the comparison home, while a metaphor does not. A metaphor just says this is this. Okay, in a metaphor you cannot take the meaning literally. Okay, because for example, if you say someone is a night owl, this person is a night owl. For example, Abdullah is a night owl. It doesn't mean that Abdullah literally is an owl. Okay, what it means is that Abdullah is someone that like staying up at night, like going out at night and all that. Okay, so you cannot take a metaphor literally. Okay, you need to look at the deeper meaning of what it's trying to say, what the sentence or what the metaphor is trying to say. So that's for metaphor, but we're talking about similes here. And for a simile, it needs the word like or as to drive the comparison home. So definitely you cannot look at the meaning literally. You'll be able to deduce that, okay, this person is not this thing. We're just trying to describe her, some of these characteristics that she may have or she may be exhibiting at that moment. Okay, like the example on the screen that says that the girl sat as still as a statue. You see that it doesn't tell you that she is a statue, but you'll be able to deduce that, okay, you are trying to say that she was behaving as like a statue at that moment in time. Okay, so that's basically talked about the main difference between similes and metaphors here. And that will lead me to the exercise. Because they are so similar, I'm just going to clump the exercise together. So I would like you to draft your own metaphors and similes. Just look beyond the common ones like night owl, black sheep, get cold feet, and all that. Those are common ones that I use. But I would like you to come up with your own that you can use in your writing. Okay, and to do this, you can just grab a piece of paper and make a list of two different lists. Maybe something that you can, something that cannot be physically touched, and then maybe something that can be physically touched. Okay, just make a list and then try to make comparisons between them. Come up with metaphors and similes that you can use. Okay, so the next literary technique we're talking about is imagery. Okay, and imagery is basically the use of figurative writing or figurative language to create a visual representation of what you're saying for the reader, or to describe something using the senses. Okay, using the 5 senses. Okay, and I want you to know that good readers, good writers use imagery, okay, to appeal not only to visual senses, okay, but to all the 5 senses, which are sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Okay, so a good writer will not only use visual representation. They will use words, figurative language that will appeal to the reader's other senses. And I've given examples for all the five senses on the board. I said on the board in the slide here now. And the first one says lightning flashed white and angry in the distance. Immediately you visualize, you visualize the lightning as it's as it's flashing, and you'll be able to see it. Okay. And the next one is his voice boomed like thunder in my ears. The word boomed is what will really drive home that image or that feeling that you want your reader to have as they read that sentence. And then the next one is the room smelt damp and putrid. Okay. When you think damp, putrid, you immediately evokes this. You sometimes you can you imagine that you're even smelling that particular thing, that, or you're experiencing that particular thing that the writer is trying to make you experience really or feel really. Okay, so the next one is her palm was warm and smooth against mine. Okay, the words warm and smooth are the ones that are going to evoke that that feeling. Okay, that this person's was really smooth, or this person's palm, sorry, was really smooth in the character's own. Okay, also the coppery taste of blood filled my mouth. If you've ever tasted blood, you know that yes, it has this metallic taste to it, and then you'll be able to your brain, when you read that, your brain is immediately triggered, and you feel like you remember how the blood, how blood tastes, and then you'll be able to really experience whatever it is that a character is experiencing at that moment. So basically, imagery relies on the correct and precise use of words, okay, that will help to evoke a kind of feeling or emotion in your reader. Okay. So for an exercise for imagery, I would like you to choose an object or a setting, any object, any object around your house, or around wherever you are. Just pick an object, or just decide on a setting. It may be a place that you've been to, or maybe somewhere that you've not been to. Maybe you're looking at a picture on net or something. Just choose an object or setting and then describe it using the five senses. Okay. The next one we'll be looking at is the hyperbole. The hyperbole is a deliberate exaggeration of actions or ideas to provide emphasis. Okay, you want to emphasize something, so you deliberately exaggerate what you're talking about. Yeah, for example, what you see on the screen, she has a million things to do. It's impossible. Just like a metaphor, you cannot take the literary, you cannot take a hyperbole as its literal meaning. You need to look deep into what the writer is trying to say. So if the writer is saying that someone has a million things to do, that means that she does not really have 1 million things to do. You can't count what she has to do and then get to a million. No, what it means is that she has a lot, so many things to do. Okay, so that's basically what a hyperbole is. It is dramatic. It is the deliberate exaggeration of something. It's an exaggerated description or statement. Okay, and it's something that is very very common. We use it a lot. Okay, when we are in English language, basically we use it a lot in English language, and you would have heard, even yourself, you would have said something that you've exaggerated sometimes. Okay, so it's something that's really common. And for the exercise, I just want you to, add more hyperbolic language to your idea, the idea that you used that you came up with in module 1, in the lesson 4 in module 1. I want you to, add more of this to it. Do not overdo it, but just here or there, just add a little bit of hyperbole to it. Also, you can do the same for imagery and metaphor and simile. Some of the metaphors and simile that you come up with, use some of them in that idea that you came up with, and also imagery as well. Try to come up with something. That exercise that I gave you for imagery, now you could choose an object that obtains, or a setting that obtains in that idea that you've chosen, and decide to describe it well. I hope you get what I'm saying. Okay, so try to fix all these exercises into that main idea that you came up with in module 1. Okay, and the last technique that I'll be talking about is personification. So personification is just basically giving human attributes to non-human object, giving human attributes to I don't want to say inanimate objects, because if you can use animals, you can be talking about animals, and animals are animate objects. So I'd rather say giving human attributes to non-human things, okay, or non-human objects, okay. And it is a way that you can allow your readers to feel empathy for whatever it is that you want them to feel, maybe a character or an animal or something like that, okay. So when you give a human attribute to something that is not human, you'll be able to, be able to feel, you tie it into, okay, if this thing is feeling the way I feel when I'm sad, for example, that means that it must be really sad. You feel empathy for that character or for that thing that is not human, and you make your work more relatable to your reader. Okay, it's also somehow like imagery. See, all these techniques and stuff, they all tie together. Okay, because it's personification. If you really look at it, it's similar to imagery, okay, sort of, because you are trying to give your reader and you want to make them feel something, yes, and you also want them to visualize it, visualize what you are trying to say. For example, the example I have on the what am I saying, board, on the screen, is that the engine coughed and shook before coming to life. And what that brings to mind is, I'm thinking about a kind of big engine, maybe for maybe a generator or something, and then it's it's shaking and really rumbling and giving out all these things that sound like a cough, spluttering and bringing out dark smoke. And that's what I see when I think about it. Okay, it could even be an engine of a car, it could be an engine of a generator, it could be engine of anything else. Okay, so basically it makes you visualize what you're trying to talk about as well. Okay, and it's really common. It's something that is really, that's why I chose this as the fifth one. It's something that is common, that people use a lot. Okay, people use it a lot. Okay, so the exercise for this is for you to choose an object and personify it. Okay, choose any object, and preferably it would be an object that you have used in your idea in module 1, the idea that we'll be working on in this course. So that idea that you chose in module 1, choose an object if it works. Okay, if it works and it can fit into that idea at this moment in time, use it. If not, just pick something and write about it, by personify it really. Okay, so if it works, add it into your idea. If not, just make it something separate. Okay.